Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. All right, isn't this the tongues speaking service? We have an interpreter in the front. I think it's biblically okay. No. My name is Nabeel Qureshi. It's a pleasure to be here. That was the traditional Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, wa rahmatullahi, and the mercy of God, wa barakatuhu, and His blessings. And so if a Muslim ever approaches you with that, feel free to say, and peace be upon you as well, or wa alaikum salam. When I was approached back in high school by a friend, her name's Betsy. I didn't realize it at the time. She was on fire for the Lord. I just thought she was crazy. But now I know she was on fire for the Lord. She approached me and she said, Nabeel, do you know Jesus? She wanted to share the gospel with me. My parents had taught me, Nabeel, anytime anyone tries to preach the gospel to you, well, that wasn't the words they used. They said, if anyone tries to share Christianity with you, you share Islam with them. And so she comes up to me, Betsy does, and she says, do you know Christ? And I say, yeah, I do. I know that Jesus is virgin born. The Quran tells me so. I know that Jesus heals lepers and cures the dead and the deaf and the blind and can raise the dead. I know He's the Messiah. The Quran tells me all this. But I also know that Jesus is not God. And she responded, of course He's God. You know, that's the center of our faith. Jesus is Lord. I said, okay, I will grant you all four Gospels. I will grant you the Gospels. Show me where Jesus claims to be God. And without fail, Betsy, along with everyone else, was not able to defend the deity of Christ. Here's what she said. She said, Nabeel, Jesus says, the Father and I are one. Is that not clear that Jesus is claiming to be God? And I said, no, it's not clear, because in the same book, in the Gospel of John, Jesus says that He prays for the disciples to be one, just as He is one with the Father. So Jesus is praying for the disciples to be unified in spirit, just as He's unified in spirit with the Father. So He's clarifying exactly how He is one with God. He's unified in spirit. I said, in case that's not clear enough to you, don't forget that in John, Jesus says, the Father is greater than I. Well, if the Father is greater than Jesus, how can Jesus be God, right? Well, what about in the Gospel of Mark, where Jesus says He could do no miracles in Galilee because of their lack of faith? You're telling me God can't do miracles? Or how about Mark chapter 13, where Jesus says that He does not know when the end of times is? Are you telling me that God does not know when the end of times is? This doesn't make any sense at all. And right around now, she had this deer in the headlights look about her. And so I said to her, if you want to know about real truth, you come talk to me when you're ready. I'll tell you about Islam. And so I turned around her effort in sharing the gospel and made it into my own dawah. And I shared Islam with her. See, truth matters. Truth does matter. And I constantly challenged people in the truth. And it wasn't until I met somebody in college that I had a fair response. This was my first year in college, 2001, Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And I ran into a friend when we were at a public speaking and debate tournament. I was on the forensics team, and my whole team had come, and most of the team at this tournament had gone out. They went out because, you know, it was the night before, they were going to party, they went drinking, they went clubbing, some of them had brought drugs with them, so they all went out. My parents had taught me never to do anything like that, so I stayed back, and if the whole team went, fine, I'm staying by myself. But one other guy stayed behind. And so we decided to room together, we became friends. And his name was David, and as the night progressed, I saw him pull out a Bible. And I thought, all right, another opportunity to take down a Christian. And so I said, David, you realize that book you're reading is horribly corrupt. And he says, well, do care to share? And I said, well, Jesus spoke in Aramaic, right? And then the early church spoke Hebrew, so already whatever they're talking about is a translated version. But then the whole New Testament is written in Greek, so you've got a translation of a translation by the time you get to the New Testament. But not only that, the main Bible, the one that the church used for the longest period of time, was the Vulgate. It was the Latin version. For over 1,000 years, they used the Latin version. So you got a translation of a translation of a translation. And then from Latin, it went to German, and from German is where it came to English. And that's why you have the ESV, the NIV, the NASB, the who knows what V. You got so many Vs, you don't know which one of them is the Word of God. And David said, Nabeel, let me tell you something. We have in our possession today over 5,500 Greek New Testament manuscripts with which we can reconstruct the entire New Testament. And if we didn't have any of the Greek New Testament manuscripts, we have over 10,000 Latin New Testament manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we have 8,000 Coptic Syriac manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we've got 36,000 quotations of the New Testament. All of these by themselves are enough to recreate the entire New Testament. And the people who wrote the New Testament were the disciples, and these people were multilingual. They could understand Aramaic, they could understand Greek, they could hear in one and write in another without losing the message whatsoever. I said, David, you're making this stuff up. Because I have talked to so many Christians and not a single one of them has said that before. And he said, try me. Let's do it. Let's study this together. Let's look into these things together. And I said, let's do it. And so we became friends. I mean, from that point on, we did like everything together. I was doing pre-med, he was doing biology. So we signed up for the same classes. We'd make fun of professors together. You know, we would study for tests together. We took chemistry together. I mean, we did everything together. And in that context of friendship, I know he's going to take a bullet for me if the time ever arises, and I would do the same for him. So when he shares the gospel with me, and when he tries to tear down my faith, I know he's doing it because he loves me. And he's trying to provide me with his truth. And when I do the same for him, I try to tear down his faith and give him my own message. It's because I love him. See, in the context of friendship, you can accomplish a lot. You can really challenge one another. So we did.